everybody? Welcome to the OneIQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for the second time this week, as we did one of our kind of midweek podcasts again for the Thursday game and the two Saturday games that are happening a little bit later here today. As you can see, Sterling wearing his Steelers jersey in, hopes that his team can actually do something. And
Hopefully.
but first off, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. We were just talking before we went live how it snowed overnight, so that's a bit bullshit, but I guess that makes the people who want a white Christmas happy, assuming it doesn't all melt by then with the weird ass weather we've been having this winter.
With that whole white Christmas thing, I was really okay with the idea of having a brown Christmas. No snow on the ground, just, it being it's like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm the first person to stand up and say, screw the snow, don't like it, don't want to be around it. But needless to say, that Thursday night game where the Saints and Rams, I almost kind of forgot about that game was even happening on Thursday night because it was just two teams that frankly had no impact on me whatsoever, being the Saints and the Rams. Obviously had a little bit of an impact in terms of playoff positions for both of these two teams, but for a Rams team that we all thought was going to be closer to the bottom of the standings this year, them being 8 and 7, I think we're probably all a little bit shocked at seeing them where they're at right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, once we saw that emergence of Puka Nakua at the start of the year, I think a lot of people were starting to shift, especially once Cooper Cup came back. They started rolling a bit, and then they had that hiccup mid-season where Matt Stafford went down with that injury, and he was out for a couple games playing hurt. They weren't doing well, but they've been rolling lately, and that's what I've been saying week in week out. They've been running hot and chasing the Seahawks for that wild card spot, and they've been doing well. It was funny because there were a lot of people at work there that were going, "Oh yeah, I picked the Saints. I don't think the Rams have it." And I kept saying to them, I was like, "Man, don't bet against Sean McVay on a Thursday night game. He seems to have it mastered doing these short weeks. He's really good at cramming for the exam. Like he's got a short week and he's only lost once, and that was barely. So I kept telling him, I was like, no, don't take the Saints, take the Rams in this one because it's a sure thing for Sean McVay to come out firing on a Thursday night football.
I do have to say and appreciate the fact that you are starting to change your tune on Sean McVay a little bit more of recently, because I know for a while when we were doing these, you weren't a massive fan of Sean McVay. You didn't think he was a great coach, but it's starting to feel like that has shifted a bit.
Well, that's because he shifted, and my issue with him was he wouldn't change. Like he was such a one trick pony for so long, and that was my issue. Is he was always going in with his game plan, and it was only like a 1-2 punch. That was all he had, and I just didn't have faith in it because once teams figured that out, they were able to shut him down consistently. And it wasn't until they started getting some more stars and some more ability to change the game plan and alter it at halftime if they're struggling. And once Sean McVay embraced that and started being able to do it, I was more on his side because I was like, okay, you can actually win games partway through because you've changed your philosophy. Instead of just going, no, we're still just going to run it up the middle and then run a play action. We're just going to run it up the middle and run a play action. You
Yeah,
know?
the biggest thing with Sean McVay for a lot of years was it was basically if he had the game plan and it worked throughout the first half of the game and you weren't able to adjust to it, the Chargers were, or pardon me, the Rams were going to win. But if you could
Hmm.
adjust to it and, start to not necessarily go, it was he struggled to formulate a game plan to kind of come back at the opposing
Hmm.
team type situation. So, yeah,
Yeah, on the fly. He struggled on the fly for a long time, but I think he's sorted that issue, and yeah, I don't have problems with Sean McVay anymore.
yeah, but needless to say that Derek Carr, the experiment there for the Saints really hasn't worked out as well. And when I did my mock draft a couple of weeks ago, I said that the Saints could be a team that ultimately drafts a quarterback and surprises a lot of people this year and just kind of allows Derek Carr to play another year while this kid learns. That's starting to feel more and more likely as we move forward into the rest of the season, where it's like, okay, well, like, you signed Derek Carr to a 4-year deal. We all knew what Derek Carr was at with the Raiders. He was a
Yep.
guy who was really good at reading defenses, screams and shouts, and in my household we call him poopy pants because whenever there's a hint of pressure, he's poops his pants essentially. Like, the joke has always been, he must hold shares in adult diapers because he sure goes through a lot in games. And the Saints just feel like they're looking at this going, "Oh no, we made a mistake."
Yeah, they took a gamble and it hasn't paid off for sure. And I mean, I think you're right. Like this should be the time the Saints go after that quarterback in the draft, and we might even see them make a bit of a splash elsewhere as well and try to ship Carr out if they can. We might see a quarterback swap for somewhere else that is less satisfied with their starting quarterback. Daniel Jones. Both have equally ugly contracts that the teams are going to have to deal with going down the road, but they may look at it and go, you know what, we just want a change, something different before we put in our new guy, and
Hey,
I think
Pittsburgh
it'd be
Steelers.
easier. Hmm?
Hey, the Pittsburgh
What was that?
Steelers. They could look at Derek Carr.
I doubt that just because I
I
don't
know.
think they would give anything up. That's just it. Like I was looking more at teams like the Giants, where Daniel Jones. They're like it's an undesirable contract. It's similar to Derek Carr's, and so it would just be a swap, change scenery for both quarterbacks. Um,
But the question is, there
it's
does the Saints want Daniel Jones? Because that
no,
that
but
still feels like a downgrade.
it is, but they also don't want Derek Carr, and they will still have Jameis Winston as well.
Yeah.
And I think that might ultimately just be what it is they just want to wash their hands of the mistake they made, take on another contract that's similar, that'll be easier for them to bench in the fans' eyes, in ownership's eyes. They'll all look at it and go, well, yeah, we're benching this guy, but it's a contract we inherited, not one that we gave out. It might be like a saving face type of trade,
Yeah,
you
I,
know,
I, I hear you. It's for me. I think still the best action for the Saints is probably going to be that ultimately draft a
probably.
quarterback and just kind of ride Derek Carr out for another year. Just to be like, you know what, we know he's bad, but
Hmm.
he was bad enough to get us into this spot where we can get a quarterback. He's probably going to be bad enough next year for us to
Yep.
have another really good pick. Then we'll have our young quarterback who's already been in the league
Hmm.
for a year and developed a little bit more, and we have whatever it could be right there, this and that, and see kind of where it takes them.
Yeah, and even with that swap speculation that I'm making, that is with them still drafting a young quarterback.
Mm.
I feel like they might look at it and go, well, Daniel Jones is worse. He'll lose more games for us, and it'll be easier to bench a name like Daniel Jones for a drafted rookie than it will be to bench a Derek Carr. You know, like I still think you could bench Derek Carr quite easily, and I
Oh,
mean,
without a doubt.
I and like I said, that's all speculation. I don't think that would happen. It's just something that I could see both of those organizations. They make strange moves like that sometimes, and especially the Giants right now with Tommy DeVito, they're looking at it going, "Ooh, we might have a horse here." And if Daniel Jones is still here, then we go, "Oh, it's going to be a bit of a messy room." Whereas with that swap, you bring a veteran like Derek Carr in, and you go, "Okay, you're going to learn from Carr. You probably will end up starting half the games throughout the season. We're going to let him start, and then put you in if it doesn't work out." And I think it would just be publicity wise easier for both of those teams to switch to a young or rookie quarterback mid-season next year than if they both still have those big contracts that they handed out. There's going to be a lot more criticism from all the analysts, and especially in New York, going, I mean, you gave Daniel Jones his contract and he's on the bench. Whereas if it's, oh, you gave Daniel Jones his contract, you traded him away for Carr, and now you got a veteran here teaching, Tommy DeVito the ropes.
Yep, and
Yeah.
it's hilarious to think about how bad Daniel Jones has to be that every other quarterback that has played under this system has thrived. Like Danny DeVito, his first couple of weeks was terrible, and then that's going to be attributed to him learning the NFL.
Yep.
And then it was ultimately like, okay, like that's him learning the NFL, but now that he's kind of learned it a little bit more, it's like it's clear that Daniel Jones is that bad. and
Yeah.
it's hilarious to see. But moving on from the Thursday night game, obviously we have the Steelers going up against the Bengals at 2:30, and then we have the Bills and Chargers at 6 p.m. We already chatted about those games, so we're instantly going to jump into our Sunday games, which is going to be the Christmas Eve slate of games coming up here. And the first game that we're taking a look here at on this particular day is the Colts versus the Falcons. Please take it away, good sir.
Yeah, I mean the Colts coming in after off a big win last week. They were looking good. I'm not sure how Michael Pittman Jr. is feeling. I know he was feeling pretty rough through the week, had to go through concussion protocol, but I'm pretty sure he did clear that, so he will be playing as far as I know. And the Falcons have not looked good. I was riding them all season, going, this team could be a sleeper. They've got a lot of talent there, but I mean Arthur Smith is just doing dumb things as a coach.
Yep.
Like you're drawing up plays and you got Kyle Pitts blocking for random running backs throwing the ball to your number 3 wide receivers. It's like, dude, use your stars. And that's what's frustrating is I still think this team has the talent there with a mid to lower tier quarterback in Ritter who can get it done if he's utilizing those stars. If he's throwing the ball to Pitts and using Bijan Robinson and is it
Drake
Drake
London.
London,
Yeah.
like if he's using those targets, then he's been a serviceable quarterback. It's when they're asking him to do all this other stuff and use these minor pieces that it's not working for this team. And I don't see them changing that this week, unfortunately. And the Colts are, clinging on to a wild card spot right now with a lot of teams nipping at their heels. And so they have to come out firing. Jonathan Taylor was a full participant this week in practice, so we have to believe he will be in the game this week. Not sure what's going on with Zach Moss. I know
Ruled
he
out.
left last week's game. He's ruled out,
Yep.
but at least they've got Jonathan Taylor back. So I have nothing that's making me think that I should be going up against the Colts in this one, and so I will be picking the Colts to win.
Yeah, and the money line is this is currently Atlanta favored at -2.5. So obviously, if you're picking the Colts to win this one,
Oops.
then you're picking the Colts to also win on the spread. I'm looking at that the exact same way as you. I'm thinking the only real reason that people are picking Atlanta into this one is because of some of the injuries that the Colts are having. Zach Moss is out. Olby, their linebacker, has been ruled out. Jack Anderson, their center, and Braden Smith, their tackle, have also been ruled out, and Michael Pittman Jr. is still questionable here at the moment.
Okay.
But for me, I still look at this team and I go, they are pretty much like I've been saying it all year. Where I don't believe in Arthur Smith. I don't think he should be a head coach. I think he should have been a
No.
mid-season fire. Um, when you draft Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and also have Bijan Robinson, and these guys aren't like this offense the way it is right now, we should be talking about this offense more like what we're talking about in terms of like similar to a San Francisco, where it's a phenomenal running back, an unbelievably athletic and gifted tight end. Kyle Pitts was the 4th overall pick, the highest a tight end has ever been drafted. And
Mm-hmm.
you also have Drake London, who was the top receiver in his draft class coming out of USC. He was that guy. Like Arthur Smith should be tried for malpractice for what he's doing to this offense, because you're looking at it going like, and I'm just gonna look at some stats here for all of these particular individuals, and it's baffling. For instance, Bijan Robinson, off of 176 carries, has 801 yards and 4 touchdowns. You're like, okay, that's not bad for a rookie running back, but for a
No.
dude who was drafted in the top 15, I believe he was drafted in the top 10.
Top 10, and not only that, but like you look at those numbers and if you go game by game, he had 2 games that were really good that were well over 100 yards, and so you take those out and you factor in more of an average and he's not as impressive. And the 4 touchdowns, like for what that team is, he should be their touchdown machine.
Yeah,
He should be up there rivaling guys like Christian McCaffrey for number of touchdowns and Raheem Mostert. The fact that that dude's leading the league is just crazy as well.
Well, then you look at Drake London, who has
Yeah.
58 receptions, 769 yards. Kyle Pitts, 47 receptions, 586 yards. Both have 2 touchdowns. So collectively, out of all three of their big guys, that is 8 touchdowns.
And that is exactly why they've got a losing record.
And the fact that they could not compete with the worst team in football last week and ended up losing to them. I don't know how the bet makers looked at this and went, yes, Atlanta. I am picking
Right?
the Indianapolis Colts, um, and
hmm
I'm also
Well,
picking them to win by this spread.
well, yeah, because I mean, you look at the Colts as well, and the Colts are in a, a three-horse race right now for their division, even not just that wild card spot, because you got all three, the Colts, the Texans, and the Jags, all sitting at 8-6, I believe. And so, I mean, they could still come away with the division at this point.
Without a doubt, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where you're just sitting back going like, how uh, it's absolutely mind blowing that the Falcons are getting this much respect right now with what's
Yeah.
happening with their team. And you know what? Just for the sake of argument, I hope the Falcons don't fire Arthur Smith this offseason and they just continue to fumble down and they're just going to be the idea of mediocrity of just like, guess what? You drafted this guy, and you drafted this guy, and you
hmm
drafted this guy. I'm betting they're probably going to draft another offensive superstar talent this upcoming
Probably a
draft.
quarterback.
Uh, maybe unless they trade for someone, potentially Justin Fields. Um,
Maybe, yeah.
and it's one of those things where you're just going to look at it and go, okay, yeah, just keep not using these guys because
hmm
moving forward, we have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Tennessee Titans, and the Seattle Seahawks, who started the year kind of the way that we expected the Seahawks to start, but have since fallen back to earth a little bit. And they've kind of had this roller coaster of a year. And, you know, Geno Smith out last week,
hmm
still Drew Lock was able to get it done against the Philadelphia Eagles, but Geno Smith is now officially back, going to be going up against the Tennessee Titans. Seahawks are -3.5 favorites in this one. And the Titans have been playing a little bit better under Will Levis, and I think this is probably going to be a pretty close game in Tennessee. However, I'm still picking the Seahawks to win this one, and I am picking the Seahawks to win on the spread. I think they they've just been too up and down, and they kind of need these games right now for the Seahawks. And yeah,
Yeah, they really do. I mean, they're getting healthy at the right time. Going to be making a strong playoff push here. They don't have too difficult of a schedule to close out the season, which is good for them. They got the Titans this week and then the Steelers next week. So I do think, the Seahawks with the Rams nipping at their heels have got to find a way to win this game. And coming off a big win over the Eagles last week, that's
massive.
got to be a huge confidence boost. Um, Geno Smith, it really depends on how he looks after these injuries. I'm thinking he'll come back in. I'm sure the receivers are going to be happy to have him back as well. Um, the Titans, yeah, Will Levis has looked good some weeks, but he's looked not great other weeks.
I'm saying
He's
he's
been.
looked better than what they were getting before.
Oh yeah, he's definitely better than what. Who was it? Tannehill.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's definitely an improvement for them. But you can sort of tell that some of these other guys are already playing for next season and trying to just protect
ride the
themselves
season
and stay
out.
healthy. Yeah. Um, and with it being that three horse race for their division, the Titans are sort of sitting back watching those three teams ahead of them going, we gotta improve next year. Um, yeah, I do think the Seahawks are going to win this one, even though it's on the road in Tennessee. And I don't think the Titans will be able to keep it close enough to cover that spread. So yeah, Seahawks money line, Seahawks spread.
Now we have the Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings, and the Lions are only 3-point favorites in this particular matchup. Obviously, the Detroit Lions 10-4,
hmm
going into Minnesota for this game, And the Vikings have struggled the last couple weeks with their quarterback situation. Obviously, when Josh Dobbs came in, he kind of shocked everyone. Was like, "Oh, hey, like I'm still kind of." But now Josh Dobbs has kind of fallen back down to earth. There, I don't even think he's starting for the Vikings anymore. And
He
the
was third
Lions,
string last week.
yeah, Lions right now, they basically have no defense whatsoever, and but their offense is just humming along, and they are just going, going, going,
Hmm.
going. You cannot stop the trio of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameer Gibbs, and Sam Laporta. Those three guys are just humming, and the fact that two of those guys are rookies is just even better for the Lions. I think the Lions win this one, and I think they win by more than 3 points. I'm shocked that it was only set to -3. I know the Vikings are at home. They have a really good defense, but I think that Lions offense is moving.
Most weeks it is. That I think I understand that close spread because where the Lions have struggled is inside their own division.
This is true.
The Vikings, the Packers, the Bears, they know how to play the Lions. And so they've been able to keep these games closer. And this is big because the Vikings, if they're able to, they, these two teams play each other twice in this last 3 week stretch.
Yep.
And if the Vikings can win both these games, the Vikings likely will come away with this division,
They
which is
very, very
crazy to
easily could.
think. After losing Justin Jefferson for part of the season, Kirk Cousins going out completely for the season. Um, but I'm with how good they looked last week, the Lions. I'm starting to think maybe they got they got those kinks worked out, and they were just firing on all cylinders. So I'm going to take that leap of faith that they do have it finally figured out, and they're going to keep that rolling this week, and they're going to just wipe the Vikings, much like they did with the Broncos last week. I thought that was going to be a tighter, harder fought game,
Both of
but
us
the
did.
the Broncos just sort of collapsed, and it's hard to say whether that was the Lions defense or not because that Broncos offense has not really been great at generating, and so it's hard to get a read. I think the defense does still need some work, so the Vikings could surprise them a little bit early on. But yeah, the Lions are going to come away with this one, get the win, and I don't think the Vikings will cover that spread.
Now moving over to arguably, it's probably going to be considered the toilet bowl this week, where we have the Commanders at Jets. It's two teams right now that are both looking at each other going, I don't know if I can beat you, and the other's going, no, I don't know if I can beat you. It almost feels like that South Park episode where they're playing baseball, where it's like, we don't want to
Hmm.
play this one. You guys here, it's no, we're the worst team, and we're gonna be better losers than you. That's kind of what this week feels like. And again, the entire season, the NFL was being cock teased by Aaron Rodgers and him coming back, and then it's him eventually coming out and saying this week, "Oh yeah, I'm not actually gonna be able to play this year."
Yeah.
Like, I I don't know, man. Like, I'm the Jets are favored by 3 points in this one. I am picking the Jets to win this game, mostly just because I think the Jets defense is still playing with something to prove, and they still have really, really good components there. And Zach Wilson, he's so up and down, and I just think the Commanders defense, they have nothing right now. They have no pass defense. They have no edge rushers. Thanks for Montez Sweat, by the way. And I think the Jets are going to cover the spread in this particular game, and they're somehow going to go 6-9.
Yeah. I'm not as surprised by that Aaron Rodgers announcement. We all knew he was blowing smoke. Maybe if the Jets were still in the fight for the playoffs, maybe he risks it. Though I think it would end his career if he did, because I think he would come back in, he would re-injure himself, and likely wouldn't be able to bounce back from that one.
Very
So
possible, yeah.
I think it's probably better for him in the long run to just wait till next year. But yeah, this Jets team has been so up and down. They'll look good for a quarter, and then they'll just collapse for the next 7 or 8 quarters. And then they look really good for a quarter. And then same thing again. Whereas the Commanders, they just look bad, and for that reason alone, like it makes it easy for me to pick the Jets here. Um, but I don't think they're gonna make much of that spread. I think the Commanders are gonna be able to cover this spread because you said it was 3 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see this Jets defense getting a safety at some point this game, so I have a feeling this is going to be like a 5-3 final or something really sad and pathetic like that. It really will be the toilet bowl of the week. But yeah, Jets win, but the Commanders find a way to cover this spread.
Yeah, again, we always have one of those games during the week that we just don't want to talk about or don't even want to think about just because it's going to be bad nonetheless. Sometimes we're pleasantly surprised, and then there's a lot of times where we're bang on the money of like this is going to be a shit game, and this
Yep.
really does have all of the makings of just a brutal game. Like the
Right.
ticket prices for this game, the lowest ticket price that they have there is $8. You
Hey,
can get a
that's
ticket for $8,
that's still way better than that Panthers game was last week,
where it
man.
was 50
45
cents.
cents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, and it was empty there. I was like, man, I'd pay 45 cents to go to a Panthers game,
Yeah. Yeah, to
right?
go see an NFL game for 45 cents. Like you
Right? I mean, we're Canadian, so it'd probably still be like, $80 or $90 in Canadian money. So
I think it might be a dollar.
I know.
Less than a
I'm just being a
less
smart
than
ass.
a fucking
Yeah.
donut. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those
I
things
know.
where but yeah,
Yeah,
I would go to
it's so
MetLife.
funny.
I would go to MetLife and watch this game for $8.
Right?
And
Right? I mean, maybe not in December.
uh,
It's probably pretty cold and gross there.
you know what? Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably right. But moving forward, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Carolina Panthers, and the Packers are sitting at -4.
Yeah, and with good reason. I don't see the Panthers winning 2 games in a row here. And you don't want the Panthers to win 2 games in a row. The fact that they won last week, I just envisioned you smashing your head off your desk when that happened, going, fuck, why? We're going to lose that number one pick if they keep winning. But they're not going to. The Packers are going to bounce back after getting beat down by Baker Mayfield last week. And we'll see, the different Jordan Love, because that's what it is. It's a good week, and then it's a bad week for this team. It seems like it's been that way all season. And so I do expect them to bounce back this week, and they'll beat the Panthers convincingly, and all of a sudden everybody will be like, "Oh, this Packers team is good again." And it's like, no, they just beat a terrible team again, and that's
They
what
beat a
they've been
dog
doing
shit
this year.
Panthers team. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, Packers win this one, and they cover that spread for sure because the Panthers aren't going to be able to score enough points to keep pace with that.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to win this game, and I think they're going to cover the spread. And again, selfishly, I'm gonna
You're
try to
torn.
I'm gonna try not to vomit when I say this.
Yeah.
I want the pack just no, I can't say it. I can't say
No.
it. I'm choosing them to win,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You don't want them to win. You want the stadium to just implode in on itself is what you want.
yeah, there was a thing
Yeah.
that I got sent by my mother this week where, and even you sent this to me, where there's a house that
Mm,
is right outside of Lambeau Stadium that's being sold for $700,000, and it was, I found your dream home. And I had to politely tell my mother to go to places and do certain things. And with you, when you sent me the same thing, I was told you to politely
yeah.
fuck off. And
I'm telling you, man, buy that shit and just deck it out fully like a Bears house. Bears colors, big bear sea on there, bunch of bear statues in the front lawn,
yeah, but
and
then
then just
all they have to say is you guys never had a quarterback and we own you, and I'm like, I can't really rebuttal that.
well, no, you just have a big old air horn, and anytime a Packers fan tries to talk, you just hit the button and drown them out. Like, no, I can't hear you. Go Bears.
It's just it's basically the la 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 la.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right? You don't even have to live there. You can do it from here. Just remote control everything. Right? Just a dig at them. But yeah,
Just
I get
every
where you're
single
coming from.
time
'Cause
there's a home game, just start playing the Bears fight song.
exactly, right? Just troll them as much as you can. But I understand you not being able to say you want the Packers to win. I'll say it for you. You want them to win only because you really need that number one pick. Not even need, but you want that number one pick because the value of it, whether you take Caleb Williams or whether you trade it away, it's too much to pass up. You really want that number one pick if you're the Bears organization, and the fact that you guys have been winning all of a sudden, and then the Patriots and the Cardinals keep losing, and then the Panthers win a game, and you got to be losing it a little bit because now it's 3 weeks left. We don't know how that draft is going to shake out now. Whereas 5 weeks ago, we were like, yeah, Bears have that number one pick locked down.
Well, for me, when the Patriots beat the Steelers, it was one of those moments of like, okay, the Bears have this stuff locked down because no one
Mhm.
thought that the Panthers could win another game, and now you're sitting back going like, oh no, that if the
Right?
Panthers, and again, just taking a look here at the Panthers' remaining schedule, they have to go up against Green Bay this week, which should be a loss. Then they have to go up against Jacksonville, which should be a loss, and then they have to finish the season off against Tampa Bay. And when they played Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago, it was a 21-18 game. So I'm sitting back going like, that doesn't really make me feel comfortable. And
Well, but I feel like the Bucks will be playing for the playoffs at that point, so I think it'll be a bit tighter, or a bit stronger for them is what I mean. Like they're gonna not have it be a end of the game decision
no,
against
I
the
I
Panthers
I,
normally
I
faces.
hear you. Yeah,
Yeah,
and again, technically the Buccaneers and Bears do have a rivalry going back to when it was the NFC Central. So the
yep.
Buccaneers could sit back and go, "Hey, let's just screw over the Bears here and let the Panthers win." And
I
that
mean,
would be a very
maybe.
Florida thing for them to do.
Yeah, if they've got that division locked up by then, which if they win the next 2 weeks and the Falcons and Saints both keep losing, then they could just go, okay, you know what? We've had injury troubles. We're gonna sit Rashad White. We're gonna sit Mike Evans. We're gonna sit Chris Godwin. We're gonna sit Baker Mayfield, and then you will be looking at it going, oh no, the Panthers are gonna win another game,
Yeah, and I would be extraordinarily upset with that if they managed to screw it up. But
right?
before I end up taking sharp objects and hurting myself, let's move over to the Browns and Texans. Which who would have thought we would have said that the Browns and Texans right now, the Browns would have been 9-5 and the Texans would have been 8-6, and this would have been an actual pretty decent game at the
Um,
beginning of the year. Like I don't think
uh,
I would have ever thought that.
no, I wouldn't have thought that it would be too. The record would be as good as it is, but I don't think it's gonna be a decent game. I mean, we got no CJ Stroud. He's out still. So I mean, the Texans offense is probably not going to look great. Their defense is still good, and the Browns defense is still good. So I mean, it's going to be a battle of the defenses because even the Browns are rolling with old man Flacco. They're what, fourth, fifth quarterback for the season.
Yep.
Like it's by no means going to be a good game, and the fact that these two teams have such good records just it makes me a little bit sick, especially the Browns. It's like, man, you guys forgot how to fall apart. You're supposed to fall apart and then lose every game. Okay, you're falling apart, but you're somehow winning. It's like they've taken the Steelers playbook and it's what they're doing now, and it's like, fuck you guys, fuck you Browns.
Maybe,
Um,
maybe just maybe we're gonna see a flip of where the Browns become the powerhouse and the Steelers kind of take on the Browns mantra for the next 20 years.
yeah, I don't think the Browns are going to be the powerhouse. I still think it's the Bengals division. It's just Joe Burrow's not there right now, so at the moment it's the Ravens division. And yeah, this very well, it's looking like it's going to be the first year where the Steelers do finish last in the division. And for the longest time in the season, it wasn't looking that way, but they have just collapsed in on themselves the last few weeks.
I, I, I
Whereas the
th- or go
Mhm.
ahead.
the Browns are finding ways to win still. They're sitting in that playoff spot. Um, I don't think they find a way to win this week because that Texans defense has been decent. They've been holding up, and as we talked about earlier with the Colts, this team is fighting for a division, let alone a wild card spot right now. And so I think the Texans are going to come out a little stronger, and I think they'll probably win this game. It will be close, so
Browns
I'm
are
not.
favored -3.
Are they? Okay, well, I'm picking the Texans to win, so the spread doesn't
Yeah.
matter at that point.
And to be honest with you, without CJ Stroud there, I think the team just hasn't been built enough yet to be successful. And that Browns defense, man, they're legit. They're going to be really hard to stop. And you saw with Joe Flacco these last 2 weeks that he can have a terrible 3 quarters, and all he needs is the fourth quarter to come back and just get it done. And I think the Browns are ultimately going to win this game, but I do think it's going to be close enough to the Texans win the spread in that particular regard. But moving forward, we now have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Trevor Lawrence has been cleared, and he is going to be traveling to Florida. Um, Even then, I still think this Jags team, again, they're in that fight with the Texans, with the Colts. A team that started out so poorly, but then got so hot, and we're like, okay, it's pretty much going to be maybe the Jags division here at this moment. If they can keep it going, then they started to get some injury concerns,
Hmm.
and the Jags are currently favored by -1.5. This is going to be an interesting game to watch. It's the battle of the crazies in Tampa and Florida, or in Tampa and Jacksonville.
Yep.
I am going to choose the Jags to win this game just because they are getting Trevor Lawrence back. And I do think they're going to have enough to beat the Buccaneers by that 1.5 point. I think Doug Peterson is going to get this team rolling and put them in some good positions, and ultimately they'll do enough to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. The key for this team going towards the playoffs now is get healthy. And so really if they get out to an early lead, I think they need to consider some load management for ETN, for Lawrence, maybe get those backups a few more reps just in case,
Yep.
get them a little more up to speed in case one of these guys does go down in time at the playoffs. Then you've got him ready, the backup ready to go. But yeah, having Trevor Lawrence back is key. Um, I've seen it a lot this season with this Tampa Bay team. They get a big win and then they get sort of overinflated and they fall flat the following week. So I kind of expect that to happen with this Bucks team. So yeah, I am picking the Jags to win this and keep pace with the Colts and the Texans. And I don't think the Bucks will be able to keep it within a point.
Yeah. Now moving over to the game that is going to likely give me depression going into Christmas dinner with the family, where we have the Cardinals heading into Soldier Field to take on my Chicago Bears, where the Bears are favored by -4 points. And I'm sitting back going, you know what? The Bears should win this game because the Bears, they have a top five defense right now. And
Yep.
if you look at the entire stats for the year, they're not top five. But if you look back at the last 6 weeks, they are
From the trade deadline on.
without a doubt, they are
Yeah.
a top five defense. They are second in interceptions in the NFL.
Yep.
They are cruising with sacks with Montez Sweat. He's leading two franchises right now with he's the leader in sacks of two different franchises right now with Washington and the Bears. And you're just looking at it going like, man, this is all looking towards the Bears should be able to get this win because the Cardinals have nothing in terms of pass defense. But I'm just sitting back going, I can't. I don't. Last week, nothing could get going. There's three players on the Chicago Bears offense right now. It's
Hmm.
DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Justin Fields. The offensive line right now is dealing with some injuries. Tevin Jenkins, he is out with a concussion, so we get good old Cody Whitehair back in at guard, which isn't gonna be anything. Um, I think that honestly makes the offensive line a lot worse. You know, I still like Nate Davis. I still like Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones. I'm still happy with. I'm not happy with our center, and I'm not happy with having Cody Whitehair back in there. But I don't think the Cardinals really have a lot to go with. I am gonna pick the Bears in this game because I think the Bears should be able to beat the Cardinals, and they have shown that they can beat bad teams.
Hmm.
And they have those 5 wins this year, and against some of these bad pass defense teams, Justin Fields has shown the ability to go off with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. I, but I, I don't know.
This is a tough one for you too, because again, like we were talking about with that Packers game, this is almost draft positioning at this point. Because I mean, you beat the Cardinals, and the Cardinals then are still riding, possibly getting that number one pick. They're sitting down there, and they need that since the Texans have been so good this year. So their other first round pick is way down in the draft, whereas they were expecting to have two top 10 picks this year, I think.
Well, I think a lot of us were expecting them to almost be
Yeah,
in the Bears circumstance where they would have those two top 5 picks.
exactly. And so yeah, that's tough because it's hard to decide whether you want the Bears to win just because, yeah, Bears win, but then if they lose, then that gets them closer to being two top 5 picks. But yeah, this Cardinals team just does not inspire me to want to pick them. The offense shows flashes. Like when you
Kyler
got
Murray doesn't look like he's missed a step.
no, and which is surprising when it's a mobile quarterback with a bad knee injury and him still being able to move around like he does. And then you got James Conner in there who has started turning it on again as well. That's a good 1-2 punch, but outside of Hollywood Brown, he doesn't have a lot of options to throw it to.
Well,
And then yeah, this Cardinals defense is not great.
yeah.
And so they're not going to be able to stop DJ Moore. They might be able to get after Justin Fields because we've seen it a lot this year where even teams that don't have a great pass rush, they find ways to get through that Bears offensive line with the injuries that you've got and, chase Justin Fields around. So I just hope Fields can avoid taking the hits, throw the ball away if you have to, go to the next play. There's always going to be that next play. Sometimes Justin Fields holds on to it a little too long and takes bad shots. I'm hoping he's smart enough to avoid that this week because this is one of those weeks where you could see a bad injury if he takes a bad hit from a guy who's not great at tackling.
For me, I'm not worried about Justin Fields and his decision making. I am completely confident in Justin Fields on the field to make the right decisions and do the right things. I'm worried about Luke Getsy and the play calling because
Yeah,
it's
is
one
he
of
going to
those
put
things
him in
where,
bad spots?
yeah, like there was times last week where we saw him draw up a quarterback run right into Miles Garrett, and you're just like, why? Why would you even consider doing a draw play over to the side of where Miles Garrett is? Like why would you ever consider that? And
Right?
like I love Cole Kmet, and he held up fairly nicely against some of the blocking assignments that he had to do as a tight end. But nonetheless, you're still putting a tight end on one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. And Braxton Jones, I felt did a half decent job. Same with
Hmm.
Darnell Wright, but again, you're asking them to go up against one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. And there was times where it just felt like Luke Getsy took the ball out of Justin Fields' hands because he didn't trust him. And it's like, dude, like
Yep.
this is the year where we're supposed to be, and the entire week it wasn't the discussion wasn't, oh, Justin Fields. It was like it's entirely the play calling. You heard um why the hell am I forgetting his name? Kurt Warner. He was on Bears
Hmm.
radio, and they asked him. They said, "Do you think this was Justin Fields' fault?" He goes, "No, it was entirely on play calling." The
Well, yeah, because I mean, you said it. Like, why do you run towards one of the best guys to get after the quarterback? That's like, you know, you don't run directly at Aaron Donald. You don't run at Miles Garrett. You don't run at TJ Watt. Run to the other side if that's what you want to do. But like this guy's going to get after your quarterback when you're not running towards him. You run towards him, and Miles Garrett's got to be just going, "Thanks for the gift sack."
Well, it's
Like,
essentially at that point, it's like running towards the murderer, where it's like I see him
yeah,
with the axe, he's walking towards me. You know what I'm gonna do just to shock him? I'm gonna run right at him, and he's just gonna go, dunk. It's
right.
like,
Yeah, it's like you see a brick wall with a door in it, and you go, "I'm going to run through the wall. Fuck the door."
yeah,
Right? Like,
and
just
like the
yeah,
door's
it's
open
terrible
too,
play calling for Getsy, man.
and like I feel really bad for Justin Fields because he like the entire week people are like, oh, like he did an interview with a local news station in Chicago, and it pretty much sounded like he feels like he's going to be moving on from the Bears. Like it
Yep.
almost felt like that was him saying goodbye. And I'm sitting back going like, I don't want that. No Bears fan wants that. There's the internal or there, I won't say there's no Bears fans that want that because there
Yeah.
are fans that do. But like I've said it before, where I feel like this is a mistake if the Bears move on from Justin Fields, because you get him a proper play caller. You get him some more pieces around him, and he can be really, really good. Granted, I don't think he's been perfect, but and I've also said that I'm going to ride with whatever the Bears choose to do in this scenario, and I still am 100% for that.
Yep.
But man, this is a game for me where I'm going to be sitting back watching it, knowing the fact that this Bears defense is going to do enough to get this team the win, and the Bears offense is talented enough to beat down on this Cardinals defense. Luke Getzey is going to completely screw it up, and somehow the Bears are going to lose. Yet I'm still taking them to win on the spread and in the game.
Yeah, and as am I. I do think the Bears are going to win this game. They will cover that spread. Even though the Cardinals have been able to put some points up here and there, I don't think it'll be enough to keep up with DJ Moore and Justin Fields. But yeah, it's sad to think that Justin Fields is already checking out and realizing he's moving on, because it's so close for this Bears organization. If you're able to get Marvin Harrison Jr., and if that offensive line can stay healthy, maybe get a couple of backups in there that are more serviceable than Cody Whitehair, then you guys got a dog in this fight, because the defense is looking good. You're only missing one or two pieces on defense. You're only missing one or two pieces on offense. And I feel like if they move on from Justin Fields, then it's hitting that reset button. It's not a full rebuild, obviously. Like if you move to Caleb Williams, you're still gonna have a team, but I feel like that sets you back 2 years. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be a year or two before we're able to get back to that point again. Whereas right now it's like next year could be it if you stick with Justin Fields and fill in those gaps.
I don't feel like it would necessarily be going back 2 years, because if Caleb Williams is who we all think Caleb Williams is meant to be, if the Bears have that first overall pick and they do decide to select him and he is who he is supposed to be, and we do have a new play caller and a new this, and that, I think the Bears, I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl bound team, but this next year, I think the Bears should without a doubt be a playoff team. If they have
Yeah, I
Justin
just
Fields and a new play caller.
Yeah, that's just it. A new play caller, fill in a couple pieces, and Justin Fields gets used to the playoffs. I really feel that way. I just, I have a hard time with the quarterback and, oh, if this guy is who he's supposed to be, because every year lately it's like, oh, this is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. Oh, this is going to be the next Joe Burrow. And we heard it for a decade and a half of, oh, this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady. Did we ever get a next Tom Brady? No. And I feel the same way now. We're not going to get the next Patrick Mahomes. We're not going to get the next Joe Burrow.
But
And
we could
every time
get
we
the conversation of, oh, this guy could be the next Caleb Williams.
yes, but we're not talking like that. And that's my concern is
Well, Caleb
when
Williams
Joe
hasn't
Burrow
been
was
in the
coming
league yet.
out, it wasn't, oh, Joe Burrow's going to be the next so and so. It's, oh, Joe Burrow is going to be Joey B.
Yes.
We talk about that guy. Patrick Mahomes, when he came out, he was sitting behind Alex Smith, and so there wasn't a lot of talk about him. I feel like those are the guys where if we're talking about him being the next guy hit as himself instead of the next Tom Brady, the next Patrick Mahomes, those are the ones that I feel tend to underachieve because the expectations are so high. And so that is my only concern with Caleb Williams, because I haven't heard a lot of talk of people coming out going, "Oh, this Caleb Williams guy, he's going to be the next great because he's Caleb Williams."
Oh,
It's all I'm hearing
he's
is,
gonna be the next great.
but I'm not hearing that from people. I'm hearing he's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, and that's where my concern comes in. That's the only reason I would be wary with moving on. Because even Drake May, I don't hear anybody saying, "Oh, Drake May is going to be the next Justin Herbert or the next Tom Brady or whatever. It's everybody's like Drake May is going to be a great quarterback coming out. They're talking about him. I feel like Drake May might be the better quarterback when we look back at this 5 years from now.
We can definitely talk about this a little bit later in the stream
Hmm.
because yeah, but we need to we'll come back to
I
that.
know.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, moving over to the Cowboys taking on the Dolphins, which is going to be a weird game because both teams are 10-4 and both teams seem to struggle against really good teams. And we both kind of look at these teams kind of like the mirror images of themselves on the opposite conference, where the
Yeah.
Cowboys were like, oh, they're basically the Miami Dolphins of the NFC, and the Dolphins are basically the Cowboys of the AFC, of where it's like we can't really trust them to win. So it's interesting that we have them actually going up against each other here at this point in the season. Um, man, and the Dolphins are favored by 2 points in this one, and this wasn't an easy one for me to pick. I am, however, picking the Dolphins because I trust them a little bit more than I do the Cowboys. I trust what Tua's doing with that offense more than I trust Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have a little bit of a better defense, and I think the Dolphins should be able to sneak a win out of this one. I think it's going to be an absolute shootout. I think that 49.5 points over under, I think that one's probably going to be smashed. Maybe not smashed, but I think it's going to be hit for the over. This is going to be an amazing game to watch, I think. I truly believe these two teams are going to kind of be just that galactic fight that we've been hoping for from some of these teams, kind of going back to when the Rams and the Chiefs faced off a couple of years ago, where it was Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes, where they put up the 54-50 game. I don't think it's going to be that high in scoring, but I think it could have a potential feel like that type of game.
Yeah, see, and I feel more like this is going to be like that South Park episode where it's a cripple fight. If I'm not mistaken, this game is in Miami,
Yes.
correct? And that is why this wasn't a difficult decision for me. The Cowboys have been great at home. They've not looked good on the road. They've not looked good playing outdoors. And Miami has an advantage in their home stadium. They always do.
Yep.
And for that reason, it was easy for me to pick the Dolphins this week. The Cowboys got exposed last week. The Dolphins have been exposed in weeks past. But I think with it being at home, the Dolphins will win this one and cover that spread. Um, I do think it'll hit the over, but definitely won't be close enough to cover that spread on either side.
I think you're probably going
Um,
to see like a 35-30 type of game.
I'm thinking closer 35 to 20. 35-21. I think that the wheels are going to come off for the Cowboys a little bit. Like I said, if they're playing at home, if it was in Dallas, I'd be picking the Cowboys to win this one because it is these two teams are home field juggernauts that go on the road and get decimated by good teams. And both of them are in this holding pattern right now where the Dolphins are in a better position to possibly have a home game or two come the playoffs. The Cowboys, I mean, with the Eagles struggling, they could still get those home games, so that is good for them. But neither of them inspire confidence. I don't think either one of these teams is going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't even know if they'll make their conference championships. If I'm being honest, it really depends on that home field advantage. If they can play at home until that point, then they'll make it there. If not, they'll be one and dones, both of them. And so, yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins to win this game, and I think they'll make themselves look really good against a Cowboys team that does not play well on the road outdoors.
Fair, fair, and yeah, yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those types of games. I like the analogy of the cripple fight. All we need
Yeah,
is Cartman to just yell that out over a speakerphone in a Walmart. Um,
right.
Now moving over to the Christmas Eve game, where it might actually be a cripple fight, where it's the Patriots taking on the Broncos.
Right.
Broncos coming off of I I would like to say their worst loss of the year, but that is just simply not the case.
No,
Uh,
it's not.
there, there's their second worst loss of the year, which when you lose the way that you did to the Lions the week prior to,
Mhm.
you're sitting back going like, how do you have a loss worse than that? But luckily, they are playing at home and they are going up against the Patriots, who, let's be honest here, they're getting kicked around like a toddler. They
Yep.
are, and the Broncos are favored by 7 points, -7 on the spread here. I am choosing the Broncos to win this game. And you know what? I am picking the Broncos to cover the spread. I just don't think the Patriots coming into Mile High are going to be able to do enough against this team that's pissed off here at the moment, going, you know what? We allowed this to kind of get off the rails. And you know what?
Mhm.
They're still fighting for the chance to potentially win this division. Like, it's going to
Yep.
be really, really difficult. They're going to have to win out, and the Chiefs are going to have to lose out. But the Broncos still could win this AFC West, which, if you would have said coming into this point of the year the Broncos had a chance to win the AFC West, I would have hit you. I genuinely would have come over to your house and hit you.
Yep.
Because I would have been, you're talking shit, you're talking tomfoolery, stop it. Especially if you
Right.
would have talked to me after week 4, I would have
Yep.
been like, no.
No, honestly, the biggest thing for me with this game is I am really surprised at the NFL that they did not flex this out of the Sunday night game on Christmas Eve. Especially with the game we just discussed, Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys. Why would you not flex that game into the Sunday night slot when we've got such a great lineup for Christmas Day as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have had 4 straight games that are really good games. Instead, you're like, yeah, let's have Bill Belichick and the Patriots on Sunday night,
Get
Christmas
embarrassed.
Eve, right? Like, no. I'd rather have that Bears Cardinals game on Sunday night
I wouldn't.
than see the Patriots. The Broncos, I'll give them props. They've gotten better. Like, I don't mind seeing the Broncos in prime time now. I was really mad about it at the start of the season because they were just garbage. I was getting sick of watching them. And that being said, their offense still doesn't inspire a lot of hope. You look at Russell Wilson's stat lines, and he's winning games. He's getting touchdowns almost every game. I think he might have one in every game except for one. But he struggles to get over 150 yards a lot of the time.
Yeah, he currently
You know
has
that
24 passing touchdowns so far this year, and he
Yeah,
has an
yeah, he's had
additional
some
2 on the ground.
multi-touchdown games.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like, so Russell Wilson's been doing well. He's finding ways to win games. And the fact that it's at home, I do think they will cover that spread as well. If it was in Gillette, then I think the Patriots would have been able to keep it close enough. But yeah, in Mile High Stadium, the Broncos will win this game. They're fighting for, as you said, the division, or at the very least a wild card slot at this point. Look to travel back to Miami and maybe avenge that 70-20 loss. I still really want to see that. That is like top of my Christmas wish list for playoff games I want to see. Um, yeah, Broncos win this, and I do think they will. It's hard to pick them to cover that spread. Like, a lot of their games have been close. Yeah, let's pick the Broncos to cover that spread. Patriots won't score enough points. That's a tough one for me though, man. That's probably the toughest thing I've had to pick all day.
So before we get to the Christmas Day games, and I just thought of a segment idea that we probably should do, so this is why I'm telling you about it now. Think about some Christmas presents that you would like to receive as a Steelers fan, or just like what would be your Christmas present if the Steelers had to do this moving into the off season? Know what I mean?
Well, what's the one thing in the off season you
Yeah,
want
as it would
my
be like
team
a
to do?
nice little Christmas gift. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. Now we have the Chiefs taking on the Raiders. This is at Arrowhead, and you know what? With the way the Chiefs have been looking so far this year, and with the Raiders kind of doing a little bit of up and down movement the last couple of weeks, the Chiefs are favored at 10.5 points in this one, and you know, I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game, but that 10.5 points feels a little bit suspect to me just because the Raiders have been playing a lot better the last few weeks. They've had a couple of hiccups here and there, and granted, you look at that game where they lost to Minnesota 2 weeks ago. where it was
Hmm.
3-0, but they absolutely dummied the Chargers 63-21. I don't think they're going to have a game like that, but I think this Raiders team is going to do enough to keep this one close, especially with how the Chiefs offense has been playing. They have not looked great. They
Hmm.
have looked pretty much more suspect than anything at this point in the year. I think the Raiders are going to cover the spread and they're going to keep it really, really close, but I am picking the Chiefs to win this one.
Yeah, the Chiefs' offense has struggled for sure. The fact that this is at Arrowhead bodes well for them, though. You
Yep.
know, the Chiefs are still really good at home. So I am picking the Chiefs to win this. And yeah, the Raiders up and down, they're trying to. I feel like they're trying to find what they want their personality to be for next season at this point. You know, and so we see them really low one week and then really high the next. I think this is going to be another low week for them because the Chiefs' defense has been better. You know, the Chiefs' defense is what's keeping them in a lot of these games right now, and I think being a divisional matchup, being at home, fired up on Christmas, I think they'll find ways to just shut O'Connell and Adams down, which really will just leave Josh Jacobs to run the ball for them. So yeah, the Chiefs will win this game, but the Raiders will cover that spread. That's a big spread. You know, I expect the Chiefs to win by 7 or 8, but that still will be the Raiders covering that spread. So yeah, Chiefs win, Raiders cover.
Yep. Now moving over to what is a game that I don't think either of us are terribly excited to be watching,
Mm.
but are you're excited to watch this one?
I mean, the Eagles, it's like they're falling apart right now.
Yeah.
You know, and the Giants have this strange life about them all of a sudden with Tommy DeVito in there. You know, like yes, he's won some, he's lost some, but they got this fire right now, and it's just this game is in New York, correct?
It is
Or
in
is this?
Philadelphia.
It's in Philly. Okay, so they play in New York in a couple weeks. But either way, like I don't know what's going on with this Eagles team, but they have struggled immensely. And I think if we're gonna see an upset at all, it could be this one. This game could be exciting to watch because I think it might come down to that final drive. Whereas, 6 weeks ago we'd be looking at this going, yeah, the Eagles are gonna put up 50 and the Giants are gonna score 3 points.
Yep. Yep.
So I think this is gonna be close. What's the spread sitting at on this one right
Minus
now?
13.5 for Philly.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna beat the Giants by that much. I do think they will win. They have to bounce back at some point. If they lose this one too, then I think their season's done. Yes, they're still going to make the playoffs,
They're
but I
already in the
don't see.
playoffs.
I know, but I don't see a way back from this. If they lose another one right now, that firmly puts them like as the third or even fourth favorite in the NFC at that point. Even now I've sort of got them as the third best team in the NFC for myself because the Lions are hot right now. And you know me, I've been saying the Niners, if they're healthy, are the team this year.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I know there's a few people not super interested in this game, but I think this is going to be a sneaky good game.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in it because I don't really care about either of the teams. I've been
Yeah.
saying that the Eagles are more fraudulent throughout the year, and it's kind of finally starting to come to fruition. That the fact that it's a minus 13.5, Devontae Smith is also questionable for the game, so it's one of those things where with the way that the Giants are rolling right now, they could win this game. And I don't think the Giants are officially eliminated from the playoffs, but they're definitely not in a good position to make it. And man, like this feels like one of those games that the Giants could sneak away with the win. I don't think they will. I think the Eagles will keep this one or get this win for them, but I don't think they're covering that spread. I think the Eagles right now with minus 13.5 points, we
Yeah.
could be sitting right now talking about this and the Eagles go out and win by 25.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of those things that over the last couple of weeks, the Eagles have not shown any sort of consistency on offense to give you confidence that they're going to be able to go out and win this game. Or
And
to
not
cover
just
the spread. Cover the spread. They're going to win the game, but not cover this spread.
and it's not just on offense, it's on defense too. They had the lead last week and they let Drew Lock drive a hurt Seahawks team down the field and win the game against them.
Yep.
That it's not looking great in Philly right now.
It
I
was
think
so much that they had to change defensive play caller from Sean Desai to Matt
yep.
Patricia going into that game last week. And if you watched it, to me, honestly, I didn't see much of a difference.
No, there wasn't. But I mean that's we say that all the time, but you usually don't. When you change a play caller this late in the season, you don't usually see a lot of difference in what that team's putting out on either side of the ball.
Yep.
Because it's too late in the season to change the fundamentals. You change that and it's like you're going back to week 1, and we always say you don't know what a team is until about week 5 or 6. And if you go back to week 1 at this point in the season, you might as well just pack
Pack
your
it in.
bags and get ready to go golfing because you're done. It's yeah, it's I think this is going to be a sneaky good game though. The Giants finally have some life about them. We don't have to watch Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes do his garbage shit every week. And Tommy DeVito, he's finding a way to get these wide receivers that aren't superstars involved. He's finding a way to get Saquon Barkley involved, which is something that Daniel Jones struggled to do. He could not get his biggest star playmaker involved in the game properly. And it was frustrating to see because Saquon Barkley should be one of the premier backs in this league. We've
So
said it year in and year out.
without a doubt, I want to talk about
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito here and taking the comparison of him and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones
Mm-hmm.
played in 6 games. Tommy DeVito has played in 7, so he has that one more game. But Tommy DeVito leads the team in passing yards with just a little over 1,000. Daniel Jones
Mm-hmm.
has just a little over 900. But the big difference between both of them is that Daniel Jones had 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and was
Yep.
sacked 30 times, while Tommy DeVito has 8 passing touchdowns to only 3 interceptions, and he's been sacked 35 times. And the
Yep.
passer rating is 91.5 for Tommy DeVito, and Daniel Jones has 70.5, which is the lowest out of the 3 starting quarterbacks to have played this year for this Giants team.
Yeah.
Just
That I know, like it's working out well for the Giants right now with Tommy DeVito in there. That's why earlier I was mentioning we could see the Giants try to make a splash to swap their undesirable contract with another team that has an undesirable contract, just so that they can wash their hands of it and go, okay, we're gonna ride this other guy's contract out.
yep, very, very
Um,
potentially.
But yeah, back to my picks for this game. I do think the Eagles will bounce back. I do think the Eagles win this, but the Giants are going to keep it close, and the Giants are going to cover that spread. That is far too large of a spread for how bad the Eagles have been playing and how good the Giants have been playing.
Yep.
3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, this spread makes sense.
Yes.
But the
Right
Eagles,
now,
it's just, yeah, like you said, we could see, we don't know what we're getting out of the Eagles week to week. We could see them go out and win by 25 or 30, or we could see them go out and lose by 15 to 20. It's the fluctuation is so great with them right now. It's got to be scaring those Eagles fans a little bit.
without a doubt. Now moving in to, without a doubt, the game of the week. Thank goodness we have this on Christmas dinner. Something to sit around, and if you don't really
Yep.
want to talk to your family, you can plant yourself down on the couch and watch the Ravens take on the 49ers in Santa Clara, California. This is, I've said this for the last few weeks, this is the Super Bowl preview. I truly believe that
100%.
these two teams are likely going to meet in the Super Bowl, and this is going to be the game that's going to be, okay, this is going to be us testing each other for that game.
Yep.
I think the 49ers are going to win this game. The spread is 6 points for the 49ers. I think the Ravens are going to cover that, so I'm going to get my picks right out of the way. But Brock Purdy, you know, people are going to, oh, he's a system quarterback. You know what? He's making all the right decisions. Right now, and again, you talked about earlier how, we've said for years of like, oh, he's going to be the next Tom Brady, this, and that. Brock Purdy reminds me so much of what we saw from Tom Brady for years and
Yep.
years and years and years, where he has players
Hmm.
around him, he's incredibly smart, and you know what? He just takes what's given to him. Where he goes, you know what? I don't care if I need to just dump the ball off to my running back. Well, guess what? He has probably the most gifted running back in the NFL right now, where he can outrun anyone. He can catch the ball and just boom, 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 boom. And you know what? He has Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and then he also has George Kittle. He has, without a doubt, the best left tackle in the world in Trent Williams, and he's just making right decisions. And not only that, he's not costing this team games. You've been saying it for weeks now. If the San Francisco 49ers are healthy, they are winning the Super Bowl. And
Yep.
I can't disagree with you on this one. The Ravens, they have a really good defense. They're going back to that true Ravens standpoint of where it's defense, defense, defense. And you know what? Lamar Jackson has been playing at a pretty good level, and he's been passing the ball really well so far this year, looking like what I thought he was going to do a little bit more of this year. Granted, hasn't had the touchdown numbers that you were kind of hoping for, only the 17 touchdowns to the 7 interceptions. I think this is going to be a phenomenal game to watch. I can't wait for it. But again, I do have the 49ers covering the or getting the win, but I do have the Ravens covering the spread at that -6.
Yeah. Yeah, game of the week for sure, possibly game of the year. And I agree, Super Bowl preview right here. I think is what we're getting. You know, for that reason, I feel like both of these teams might be playing it a little close to the vest. I don't know if it'll be super explosive to start out because they're not going to want to show everything. You're going to want to show like some of your other stuff in there. That way, the team's not really picking up on what you're going to do with McCaffrey and what you're going to do with OBJ,
It's
things
such a
like that.
chess match setting up moves for later down the road.
Exactly. It's going to be really interesting. But yeah, this is going to be a great game. I know I've asked my mom if we can do dinner a little bit earlier. That way I can rush home and get home by 6:30 to watch this game. I might miss the first quarter, but I'll definitely be catching the end of this game. Um,
It's going to be a
yeah,
situation for you getting the wife to drive home where you're just watching it on your phone.
maybe I drive faster, so I'll probably still do that. Um, yeah, definitely picking the 49ers to win this game though. Because they've got a great defense as well. Since adding Chase Young at the deadline there, their defense has really locked it down for them, which makes it easier for Brock Purdy to go out there and know that he's covered and be safe. He's like, as long as I don't turn the ball over, I give my defense a chance to rest, they're going to come out here and get me the ball back.
Yep.
And so this is going to be just such a great game to watch. The Ravens just don't have as much scoring firepower, and they're really hurt and banged up in that running back position. So that takes out an entire dimension from their game. It's going to make it tough for the Ravens to hang with this. And so I do think the 49ers win, and I don't think the Ravens keep it close enough to cover that spread.
Very, very interesting. Looking at some of the Ravens' potential injuries, Ronnie Staley is questionable. Keaton Mitchell, he is on injured reserve, but Ronnie Staley was the 18th and Mitchell was the 19th. And then looking at Arthur Mullett, their corner, he is questionable in this one as well. And man, both of us we're looking at this one as this is just going to be an unbelievable game to watch. But moving forward, we're going to go into our top 5 and bottom 5 of the NFL. As per usual, Sterling, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, I mean, my top five got shaken up pretty consistently last week. I think all three of my new additions last week in my top five got knocked out. My one and two are still the same.
Yep.
It's our Super Bowl matchup that we're predicting. It's 49ers at number one, Ravens at number two. But then that's when the shakeup happens. I've got the Dolphins moving up to my number three spot this week, and they are closely followed by the Detroit Lions, who looked really good last week. And then I've taken a note out of your book there from earlier in the season. The Eagles didn't drop completely out. They dropped to my number five solely because Jalen Hurts was playing sick last week, and I feel like maybe that was part of the issue in why they couldn't generate some of those points. So I've got the Eagles still in my top five, but barely clinging on to that number five spot.
Again, for me, at my picks 1 and 2, it's our Christmas night matchup where it's the 49ers, then the Ravens. I have the Dolphins at number 3. I actually have the Cowboys at number 4. Granted, it's with the way that the record is right now, it's hard for me to drop them out because they still have been playing really, really well. And then I have the Lions at pick number 5. For me right now, I just can't have the Eagles in at my top 5 spot just because they've been losing, and they kind of have been one of those teams that's been on fraud watch for me for pretty much since like week 5, where it's been like, okay, like they were the number 1 team in the league for a while because they were the team that stayed undefeated the longest. It's like you can't take the team that isn't that is undefeated and move them down. But the
Hmm.
second that they lost, it was like boom, you're now number 3. And then they've been on this streak now. They've lost, what is it, 3 in a row? Yeah, it's 3 in a
Yeah.
row. To me, I can't have them in the top 5 in good faith.
And that's fair. I just looked at it, and I don't think they would have lost that third in a row last week with Jalen Hurts healthy. And I mean, you look at all the good teams this year. We've had the Chiefs up there.
Mm-hmm.
They had multi-game losing streaks. The 49ers are in our number one slot. They had a 3-game losing streak at
Yep.
one point. Like all these good teams have
They've
gone through this
they've
this
gone through
slump. And
struggles.
so, maybe this is a good thing for the Eagles that they've got this slump out of the way right here near the end of the season, and they've got 3 weeks now to build that momentum back up going into the playoffs. So that's why I've got the Eagles in there. And you know me, I'm not a supporter of dem boys. I don't think, like, they got destroyed by the Bills last week. That was why I was like, no, you're out.
That entirely fair, entirely
Yeah.
fair, and I get you. Now moving over to our bottom 5, which I don't feel like has a ton of shakeup. I know I have a couple teams in different spots this particular week,
Do you?
but yep.
That's fair. My bottom five is identical to last week. And so going 28 to 32, I've got the Chargers, Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, and Panthers. So that is the exact same five in my bottom that I had last week.
So for me, I have the Panthers at 32, Patriots at 31. I actually have the Commanders at 30th. I then have the Chargers at 29, and then I have the Jets at 28. The Cardinals are sneaking out there because you know what, they have looked better, and you know what, if you were to put all of these teams up against the Cardinals, I would likely choose the Cardinals to win that particular game, and so it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, man, like they're sneaking their way out on that
That's
particular
fair.
point, but those are our tops and bottom fives. So now moving into a little bit more of our discussion portion of the pod, and let's start out with going in. What is the one thing, kind of almost your Christmas hope and Christmas gift that you're hoping for your team?
An NFL capable offensive coordinator play caller. Ideally, Cliff Kingsbury. That would be my top of my wish list. If you can get Cliff Kingsbury to come in and turn this offense around, and I think he'd be able to. I don't know if he'll come back, but that's why it's a wish list, because I don't think it'll happen, but that is the one that I want to happen.
Yeah, for me, it's getting Ben Johnson as the new head coach of the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to kind of sub present underneath this one with it, keeping Justin Fields.
Hmm.
But yeah, getting Ben Johnson in there, to me, he looks like the clear cut number 1 coach in the NFL, and I truly feel like the Chicago Bears job, if it does open up, it is the most attractive job in the NFL and should attract the best head coaching candidate. So those are kind of our Christmas presents that we're hoping happen in the
And
next couple of weeks.
I love how we both ended up, going with play callers slash coaches, that sort of thing, as opposed to players. It's not so much, because I mean, I know for a lot of Steelers fans they'd be going, "Oh, we need a quarterback," but my response is who? It's
Yep.
like, okay, yeah, so we don't roll with Kenny Pickett. Who? We don't know where we're going to finish in the draft. We don't know if we're going to be able to have a high enough pick to get one of these key guys.
You
And so
definitely
then
have
you're
to
going,
trade up.
right? You got to trade up or you've got to look around the league for somebody else. And even that doesn't inspire a lot of hope. It's what? Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, maybe Gardner Minshew. But I mean, any of those, that feels like you're just then playing for mediocrity at that point.
Yep.
You're playing to finish middle of the road and maybe fight for your division.
Yep. Kirk Cousins
Whereas
potentially could be a guy for your team just to kind of get that last push into the Super Bowl window, because your
possibly,
defense is kind of in that mode where they're kind of that last year or two of that Super Bowl window level defense.
I mean, maybe that defense has a good. They're really good at next man up. And we've got T.J. Watt for a few more years. We got Minka Fitzpatrick locked up. We got Alex Highsmith locked up. And really, what's been hurting us this year is the injuries. All up the middle, like all our middle linebacker core, our safeties, like we're rolling with practice squad linebackers at this point, and
True.
that is big issue. And so that is something else that the team will have to address in the offseason is finding a way to fill those gaps and then try to stay healthy next year. But a large part of that is getting an offense that can stay on the field. Because I feel like a lot of these injuries came because the defense was on the field so much, and they're fatigued, they're exhausted, and that's when those injuries start to happen. So we got to find some way to keep that offense on the field and at least be moving the chains because that just hasn't happened for the team this year. My only concern with doing something like Kirk Cousins is, coming off a bad injury like that is will
Can
he
he
be able
still
to stay
compete
healthy?
the same level?
Well,
No, I get you.
and can he stay healthy? It's tough. And at least with him, you don't have to trade anything away. So there is that. I know we've talked that there could be trade options out there of Justin Herbert if they decide to blow up that Chargers team, or Justin Fields if they decide to take Caleb Williams. So there's options out there, but there's nothing that I feel like is a solid option without having to sell your future. Justin Fields would be the ideal if you can get him for cheap or wait for the Bears to just cut him if they can't find a trade partner.
The
That
Bears
would be
will get a trade partner
they
regardless
will.
of it. It's
Yeah.
just yeah.
It's how much can they get, Like if you can get him cheap enough, then yeah, he would be a good option to fit into this offense that I think would be able to right the ship, And that being said, I'm not 100% out on Kenny Pickett. It's just I haven't had enough data to really read him, and that is why the biggest thing on my wish list is an offensive coordinator that is proven to be able to call NFL offense and really good at working with young quarterbacks and a young team. Cliff Kingsbury, he was building up that Arizona team, and really it was the ownership and the management that started picking it apart on him, and it fell apart. He wasn't a good head coach, is what I felt.
Yes. Yeah.
He was
It's kind
going
of
that
how I
Sean
feel about
McVay.
Matt Eberflus, where it's like you really like him
Yes,
at the coordinator position in Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator, Kingsbury at the offensive coordinator, but
yes,
just not good enough to get the actual full duties of a head coach.
yeah, yeah, and that's sort of how I feel about Kingsbury, and that's why I think he would be a really good fit in Pittsburgh. A 3 to 4 year deal, something that can help him rejuvenate his career and get him back on track and possibly move up to a head coaching position somewhere else after that contract. You
I
know,
believe Kingsbury is a coordinator, is the offensive coordinator with the Rams, if I'm correct.
oh, did he?
Yeah,
So I
I
thought he was
think
taking. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought he took the years off after Arizona fired him and they still had to pay him out.
pardon me, he's
Like
the
he.
offensive coordinator for USC.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I thought he was still hanging out in Thailand doing his thing. So might be a tougher get now. I didn't think he was back to coaching yet. So
Yeah, he I knew he was coaching this year. I couldn't remember
yeah,
if it was for the Rams or if it was for USC. I knew it was an LA team, and yeah, it turns
Okay.
out it was USC. So we spent the year working with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And yeah, now going over, speaking of Caleb Williams, I know we said we were going to move this discussion to a little bit later on the Caleb Williams and Drake May front. And I've been doing a lot more deep dives on these two guys over the last couple of weeks, particularly I
Hmm.
know this week. And, kind of my ultimate thing, and I know you were talking about you haven't really heard anyone talk about Drake May in that, it's like the next Justin Herbert. That's the only person that I've been comparing him to. And I've been comparing him to, he's going to be with the arm talent of Josh Allen, but he's going to have the athleticism of Justin Herbert. That is who I've been comparing him to, which is a very, very good quarterback. And again, you
Hmm.
always need to look at a quarterback, basically every prospect of here's their floor and how high is their ceiling, and then you need to kind of move that up and down of what their potential is for the NFL. With Caleb Williams, I think his floor is kind of right around like this area of where it's going to be kind of a middle of the road quarterback. But his potential is Patrick Mahomes. So he kind of has that kind of little bit of a tougher or a tougher ladder to climb, but
Hmm.
it's one of those things where you need to look at that and go, if we can get the right person in there to develop him into that type of guy, it's going to go, of course it's going to be a no-brainer. And with Drake May, he kind of has a similar situation there as well, where his floor is kind of like right here, where his floor almost feels like to me of kind of like a Derek Carr and the potential of being a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert type player, which is still a top 5 quarterback in the entire NFL. And both of those guys, I mean, if you are a quarterback needy team, for instance, like
Hmm.
the Patriots, you're going like, yeah, of course we're gonna take one of those guys. Like it's not gonna be a problem whatsoever.
Yeah, and 100%, I do expect the Patriots to take whichever one of those is available at the number 2 or 3 spot, wherever they end up picking.
Potentially number one
Um, Potentially number one. Yeah, we don't know for sure. If the Panthers can win another one and the Patriots keep losing, then
or
that
trade.
becomes their pick.
You
Hmm?
can't forget about trade.
Yeah, yeah, trade's always possible there too. Yeah, you never know, but yeah, it's just I don't have an issue with saying, this guy has skills like another quarterback. It's just I get wary, as I was saying, whenever somebody says this guy is going to be the next so and so. That's where my concern comes in, when it's the next Tom Brady or the next Patrick Mahomes. When it's, oh, he's got the arm talent of a Justin Herbert. It's like, yeah, okay, you got to find somebody to compare him to. But saying he's going to be the next iteration of one of the best guys to play the game, that's where the red flags go off for me. And it's just, it worries me because you haven't seen it come to fruition ever. The guys who end up coming into this league and becoming a great are the ones that aren't compared. You said it great earlier. Brock Purdy now is starting to be reminiscent of what Tom Brady was. But he was never compared to Tom Brady and wasn't really, nobody was saying, oh, this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady. Because that's how you find the next big star, is by not necessarily comparing him to who that is. It's by developing them and finding that gem that nobody else spotted. Nobody thought Tom Brady was going to be who he was. He was a 6th round draft quarterback
He
who
was the
sat
fourth
behind Drew
quarterback
Bledsoe.
during his rookie year. He was the fourth
Yeah.
quarterback on the Pats roster.
Yeah. I believe he was even second string through most of his time at, was it Michigan that he played?
Uh, yeah, he wasn't a main starter until his final year,
No,
and even then, his final
exactly.
year, he still had to compete for that job.
Exactly, and so that's where these guys that come up and they're the number one all throughout, it's very tough because you look at it and you go, it's not every day that number one guy pays off. We've seen a lot of number one guys that end up being one of the worst, like Jamarcus Russell comes to mind, and I can't remember the one who got drafted like back in 1998 or
Ryan
9,
Leaf.
but yes. Ryan Leaf, like there's a lot of times where it's this guy's going to be the next star, the next big thing, and they just don't live up to the hype. And so that is my concern, and the reason I get so into it is because with your Bears potentially having that pick, it's just that concern of with Justin Fields, we've seen the improvement and he's been climbing towards that ceiling as opposed to falling back towards his floor, and then to switch it up for another guy and start fresh, you just have that concern of will he get there or will he be a bust? When you've got somebody who's already on the climb, you don't necessarily want to sell that out for what could be a bust. You've used the analogy the last 2 weeks from Family Guy. It's you can get this boat or you can have this box, which, maybe there's a boat in it, but
It
it could
could be
also just
anything.
be, it could be anything. It could be a card that says, haha, loser, have a bust,
Yeah. And
right? And that's my concerns with Caleb Williams. There's just too many comparisons of he's going to be the next great Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be the next thing. And it's like, I don't know if he is.
well, for me, I completely agree with you. I don't think we should say he's going to be the next so and so. For me,
Yeah.
I always think you need to have the comparison of the type of player that he is and you
Hmm.
think he could be, and very similar playstyle. And that's where you hear a lot of the scouts terminology. And you've heard me say he, like Caleb Williams, very easily could be
Hmm.
the next Patrick Mahomes. But the reason why I do that is mostly going. You need to look at the way that I compare players is what they're doing at the NFL level and what they were looking like at the college level as well. And when I
Yeah.
look at Caleb Williams, and I see a lot of Patrick Mahomes because you look at what Patrick Mahomes is in the NFL, it's a lot of moving around the pocket, can amazing accuracy while on the move, while still being a great pocket quarterback, and with the mobility that is not necessarily the top, but still can get done, and still teams have to be worried about that. But you go back and look at what Patrick Mahomes was in college at Texas Tech.
Hmm.
He was a guy that was, he had nothing around him in terms of talent, made, you know, gravy out of shit, and
Hmm.
I know that's not the analogy there, but it's close enough. And he showed this off, you know, what's the term for it? It's off time plays or out of sync plays
Hmm.
where he can make something happen. And when I see that, I go, and I look at Caleb Williams, I'm seeing all those same things that I saw from Patrick Mahomes while he was at Texas Tech. There's nothing to say that him moving into the NFL that he's going to be able to go on that same level as Patrick Mahomes, because obviously there's going into work ethic, there's coaching as well. That's a big thing,
Yeah.
and the players around you, that's another big thing to help grow your career.
Hmm.
Pretty much my biggest thing with Caleb Williams at this point, from what I've watched from him, is that I want him to take those open players when they're there, because he often will times like to try to make something when he should just take what is available for him and take the yards, almost what we're seeing from Brock Purdy, where he sees his open running back and goes, yeah, I'm just going to dump it off to him, instead of trying to
Yeah.
make those super splashy plays of where it's like, oh my god, he threw it 60 yards down the field in a window no one thought he should throw it to, and gets it to his wide receiver, and boom, it's a touchdown, and it's on TSN every single night. He does a lot of that, which you're kind of sitting back going like, that's great. I want my quarterback to have that mentality, but I also
Hmm.
want him to go out there and just go, oh, hey, look, my receiver, boom, there, it's open. Like you see that so
Yeah.
much from Joe Burrow as well, of where he can
Hmm.
do that super highlight level play, but he's also smart enough to do that, and that's what I love about Caleb Williams is you just need to kind of coach him to go hit the open receiver. You see it, hit it.
Yeah. Yeah, adjust to the NFL play because
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you're going to be able to do that a lot more in college because you're playing against lesser D backs, so you're going to be able to pull that off a lot more. Whereas once you get to the NFL, you're that's when your interception numbers go through the roof because you're trying to force it into those windows that while it worked when you were playing college ball, it's not going to work in the NFL as often.
And
You need to
granted for
pick and
Mahomes,
choose.
yeah,
Hmm.
and granted for Patrick Mahomes, he didn't realize that strategy for him for a couple
Yeah.
of years. It was almost like it felt like year 4 when we finally said, "Oh shit, he's doing this now."
Yeah.
Like he's hitting those open guys and going, "I don't need to make that." And that's the
Yeah.
thing that, Caleb Williams is going to have to learn as well. And, he's going to have
And
to still be that guy, but he's also
yeah.
going to have to potentially do that as well. And
And the other thing that Patrick Mahomes had is he had the advantage of being a bit of a later pick, so he could sit on the bench and be coached up by Andy Reid and
well,
be,
he was the
you
10th
know,
overall pick.
but as you've said before, when you're the first overall pick, you got to be in there day one. 10th overall pick, it's easier to sit him behind your starter.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like, like when you pick a guy first overall, he should be your starter week one,
True. And
you know?
the situation that you and I always go back to with quarterbacks is the start to sit. And you feel
Hmm.
that with all of the positions, and I feel that if you're a first round pick, you need to be a starter immediately because you are 32 of the best players coming into the NFL. And
Hmm.
I don't feel like if you are one of the 32 best players coming into the NFL, you should be a starter. But when it comes to quarterbacks, for me, I've kind of moved more into the direction of you need to have someone who is established in the NFL. And
Yeah.
granted, there's not many of those guys, and sometimes it's a lot harder to get one of those guys. Like, for
Yes.
instance, Kenny Pickett. He had
Yeah.
Trubisky coming in. Yeah, he was established in the NFL, but he was also established as someone who wasn't that good.
Yeah.
When the Bears drafted Justin Fields, they had Andy Dalton. It was like, okay, you have a guy who's been in the NFL and has done some good things. I would have preferred Andy Dalton to have started that entire year because I felt like the Bears made the right move there, bringing in Andy Dalton, a guy who was a starter, who was capable of a starter, but he was also at that point in his career where he wasn't that good anymore.
Yeah.
And, when Patrick Mahomes came in, it was Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, who that year that Mahomes was sitting behind him, Alex Smith was fighting for the MVP. Like,
Yep.
like that is not an easy thing to have happen. So
No, it's not. I do agree. You're
it's
right
easier
there.
to
Like
say to put that into practice than it is to
it is.
actually establish it. But yeah,
Yeah, it is tough, and that's why it's such a tightrope walk and why it's so difficult for these teams. It's just it that, that's my only concern with Caleb Williams is he's going to come in. Whoever drafts him, he's going to be that week one starter, and is he going to be able to quickly enough change that mindset of I'm throwing the splash plays to I'm getting the yards that are there in an efficient enough time that it's not going to destroy and erode his confidence and just have him end up being a bust. That's my concern with him because
it's
the
also the
expectations
place
are
where he
so high.
goes.
Like I know you are, you know, more tempered in your expectations of him because of who you are, but a lot of the analysts I've been seeing out there, they're just so hyped up on him. That is my concern is there's so many expectations for him. And depending on where he goes and what the media market is like and what the fan base is like, it could go really bad for him really quickly, unfortunately. And people could just turn on him if he's not this all-star caliber player immediately. And that's where I like to sort of hang back and go, okay, calm down a little bit. But yeah, with where we are in this season and the teams that are likely to pick him, he is going to be a week one starter. You look at the teams there, and there's nobody really I could see that's going to take him and have an option to be sitting him instead. And at number one, you should be starting. You say the top 32 should be in there right away. You know me, I'm usually more top 5 to 10 should be in right away, and the rest should be competing for that job. But if they're not the best at the end of training camp, then maybe it's better to sit them for a little bit. And I saw that this year with Broderick Jones. We took him with was it 11th
I think it was the
or
14th.
14th? It was in that top 15 range, though. And he didn't play until, I don't think he even saw a snap in the regular season until week 6. and then he didn't start a game until week 7 or 8. And then after that, they moved him over to right tackle, and he's been our everyday starter since because, he built up, and that's really what helped that Steelers run game take off finally, was once they got him in at that right tackle spot. And so that's where I'm you know, more on board for sitting a guy and letting him get up to that NFL speed before throwing him to the Wolves.
Fair. And for me, I think I've always been saying this for years, and I think more people in the NFL are starting to realize now, is that wherever your quarterback is selected, like which team he goes to, it has to be the right
Mm-hmm.
situation. Because
Yes.
unfortunately, a lot of times when you are the first overall pick, you are going into a really, really bad situation. And this is why I
Mm-hmm.
think that if the Bears do draft Caleb Williams, why I still think they could be a playoff team next year, is because if the Bears draft Caleb Williams, well, guess what? They still have likely a top 10 pick, which
Mm-hmm.
you add another great piece to your team. You're going to be able to have a ton of cap space, and I believe that the Bears move on from Matt Eberflus. They bring in a new coaching staff, and it's not like he's going to go to a team that doesn't have a number one wide receiver. DJ Moore is without a doubt a number one wide receiver. You're likely going
Yep.
to draft another wide receiver in the third round. And if you get another pick, like let's say the Bears trade they trade Justin Fields to the Falcons for their second round pick. Well, guess what? You have an extra second round pick to help out there, and that feels like he's going to be an immediate playoff quarterback and be put in a really good position. Now, if he goes New
Yep.
England, it's going to be one of those things of like, who's your number one weapon? Juju Smith-Schuster, yay. And it definitely is who is in a proper position for sure. But yeah,
Yep.
it's
And 100%. I mean, that's not even just the guys getting drafted. Like, you guys take Caleb Williams and say you trade Justin Fields away to somewhere like the Atlanta Falcons. I feel like that for him will start his descent towards his floor because of how bad the coaching is there. And that's just it. Like that, it'll impact so many different things. A quarterback goes to the wrong team with the wrong coaching makeup, and it can completely destroy a career.
look at.
That's why the Browns destroy so many careers.
Mhm. I agree, but I don't have anything more. I don't know if you have anything more. I know you got some stuff to do, but we'd like to thank you all for hanging out with us here on this Christmas time. Hopefully, you all have a great festive season, and we will see you back for more week 17 football next week. And till then, we say peace.